All right. Hi, Layne. How's it going?
Hi, Pia. How are you?
Very excited as we head towards the holiday season.
Like real fast, really, really fast.
I know you
And
just had Thanksgiving, so happy post Thanksgiving.
thank you very much. Thank you very much. And yeah, so we're getting ready for the holidays.
We are.
And I actually just did a story on the top holiday wines to gift and serve for hosts.
Nice. From
And
California.
from all over the world. They weren't, I didn't like limit it just to California, but it's published here in San Francisco. So I selected a couple of those that I particularly like, and I believe you've selected a
I
wine.
have.
What do you suggest?
So I think, well, I mean, Christmas basically can't be complete without some bubbles. So, as you know, as I'm based in Rome, I usually drink mostly Italian bubbles here. And one of my very favorites for the moment is the Franciacorta called Monogram. I don't know if you know it, and I don't know if you can get it anywhere else, kind of outside Italy. But it is a traditional method. So, for those who don't know, Franciacorta is kind of Italy's answer to champagne.
Yeah.
It's a really, really wonderful area, and DOCG, so the docked, and it's a Blanc de Blanc, and it's by a winery called Castelfaglia, and it's a mixture of Chardonnay and Pinot Bianco and stays on lease for 24 months. And it's just this really wonderful kind of crisp sparkling that kind of goes perfectly with that sort of antipasto of um, cured meats and you know, kind of salami and that kind of thing that you very often get here as an aperitivo going towards the holiday season. So it's a really nice combination. And with the sort of the fat that you get from things like mortadella and that, it really cleans your palate afterwards. It's wonderful. So that would be my absolute number
Nice.
one.
Wow. Well, I selected two white wines that I've just been super impressed with that I've had recently. And I just think these might be nice to even just gift because I think they're both like in the $60 kind of range. So, you know, it's a gift. It's more of a gift, I think. And then, but it's just, I'm so into white wines. One is an Alsatian blend. Do you say Alsatian or Alsatian? Alsatian blend?
Alsatian.
Alsatian blend. And that is made by a Napa Valley winery called Bouchain. And they're in like the southern part of Carneros. Carneros is kind of like a really cool climate. It's on the border actually between Sonoma and Napa. And it has like, it's so far south that you can, in some places, see like the Golden Gate Bridge. You know, it's got a lot of cooling influences from the bay and from the ocean. And
Right,
it's
right, right.
so like Tattinger's sparkling house, their domain Carneros is in this area.
Ooh,
Carneros.
wow.
Yeah, so it's a perfect location, and it's a blend of, let's see, 50% Pinot Gris, 30% Pinot Blanc, 10% Gewürztraminer, and 10% Riesling.
Ooh,
So
nice.
it's yes, and each one of them are aged in a different vessel. So the let's see, the Pinot Gris and the Pinot Blanc are both aged in clay amphora, and the Gewürztraminer is no, I've got that wrong. Hold on, it's the Riesling and the Gewürztraminer are aged in clay amphora. The Pinot Gris is in concrete egg, and the Pinot Blanc is in neutral oak. So what is so amazing about it is that it's so layered. This wine is so interesting, you know, and I think that's not always easy to find in like a nice, fresh white wine. It's like also just so beautifully made, like with such attention paid to it. So I felt like that is like artistic and
Must have
beautiful.
quite good aging potential as well.
Exactly, exactly. Which leads me to the other one, which is a Sauvignon Blanc, but it's also an aging wine. And
No.
I went to a really nice luncheon put on by Elaine Chukin Brown, who's like a pretty famous wine reviewer here, and with Jancis Robinson. I don't know if you know who that is. And it was all on aging white wines. And it was hosted by this winery called Quintessa, which is also in Napa Valley. And this part of Napa Valley is in Rutherford, and their winery is like at the base of the Vacas Mountains. So it's also, again, beautiful, beautiful terroir. And I mean, actually one of the most beautiful wineries to visit as well. But this was one of the wines that was served. It's called Illumination. It's by Quintessa. And it is, I mean, I can't even honestly explain how beautiful it was. I did not want the bottle to end. I could have cried. It was just really like when, again, I really like the kind of complex white wines. And I think it's just so much harder to get like a floral element, those like really complex aromatics even. And so it really had a lot of that. And I wrote down like just a few from the tasting, like elderflower, in a Sauv Blanc too, really. And like there's some grapefruit blossom, but it also has like a round texture as well as acidity. So essentially, the idea around the aging is that a really well-made white wine with good acidity, can also age really nicely. And some of the wines that we had that day, one was almost 20 years old, and it was incredible because it was such a beautiful balance without losing that acidity. So anyway, those are my two, both of them in the $60 range. So it's Quintessa Illumination and the Alsatian blend of Bouchain Winery. So
Amazing. That really does sound fantastic. In terms of reds, I was thinking, for example, so I was thinking kind of if you were putting together like a meal, right? So you start with maybe your bubbles, so maybe your champagne or your Franciacorta or something like that. And then if you make some kind of a meat, like what could you serve with that would, and or you could give us a gift that would be really nice. And so one of the things I thought of was obviously for a festive season, Amarone della Valpolicella,
oh yeah.
very, very nice. And very full bodied. So, you're talking, something that you would give perhaps a wine connoisseur, but it's not for everyone's palate. But if you wanted to give something that is as equally good for sort of roasted meats, but it's maybe more, more people would maybe be open to it, is the Brunello di Montalcino, right? And the reason I was
Yes.
thinking that is because Sangiovese is just one of these really likable, kind of red varieties that people just are always drawn to. It's very well aged. They're usually, especially if you go for a certain price range, as you were saying, like 50, 60, dollars, you're looking for something really nice and that will go perfectly with your sort of Christmassy type meals that are usually quite meat
Uh-oh, you
based.
froze.
Am I back?
Hold on.
I can
Oh,
see
now you're back. Okay, good. You were
Okay,
frozen, so I took that opportunity to go let Rocco inside.
no worries. So yeah, that's my red wine. What about you?
I didn't choose a red wine, actually.
Oh, okay.
But I kind of went with more what I was impressed with recently, things that stood out to me that were really, really delicious. And those were the two that really stood out to me. If I were going to think about a red, what's a red that I've had recently? Well, the one that I actually opened last night, actually delicious. Rutherford. Let me grab this. It's right here. It's a Merlot.
It's a
And
Merlot.
it's a Merlot. And I am wildly impressed with Rutherford Hill. So this winemaker. They have like a new young wine. He's from South Africa, but he then moved to Australia and he studied there. And then when he came, but he's worked in France. He's trained all over the place. And he took on this really old winery. I mean, like they used to be really known for Merlot. Merlot was really their thing. And then, like a lot of places, they kind of then tried to expand and do different things and all stuff. So basically, they're doing new things now. He actually got in his first vintage with this winery, got the highest score from Wine Spectator that they've ever given any Sauvignon Blanc, because he kind of like what we're talking about. He put a lot of attention to making it so much more than just like what the typical Sauv Blanc is, just like that kind of easy drinking, refreshing kind of wine. He wanted it to be much rounder, much more interesting, much more complicated. So anyway, he's good. And so they had an event at this winery where they did a tasting of their Merlots going back to 1975. 75. Can you believe that? So
That's
they
tremendous.
had, yeah, so it was like 75, then I think there was like a 79. Anyway, I think there were 6 different wines and the most recent was maybe like a 10 or something like that. And the 75 blew everyone away, because especially for its age, but also just like you wouldn't really, it had not lost any of its structure or yeah,
So
it was beautiful. So he's bringing kind of back also this Merlot program, because he's just like, Merlot got lost. Merlot got lost when Sideways came out. For California, Sideways killed Merlot. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say that?
do. I know exactly what you're talking
Oh, you're
about.
frozen again. I'll just tell the story. So the movie Sideways.
No,
in
no,
the
I
movie,
do know it. I do know it. I know exactly what you're talking about when he's like, I'm not drinking Merlot.
yes, yes. And everyone thought that the people who didn't really know about wine thought that meant like, oh, Merlot's terrible. And he was a wine connoisseur, so it's like, oh, it's terrible. No, I don't like Merlot because this guy who knows wine didn't like Merlot. He didn't like Merlot because his ex-wife loved Merlot. So that is the whole point behind, but that got lost. And instead, everyone stopped drinking Merlot. It really did kill Merlot for a decade or two. So I love Merlot personally, and so they brought this back, and it is incredible. And he's doing such a great job, this guy. So check that out, Rutherford Hill Merlot. They're doing amazing things. I mean, I'm sure that I don't think you can even buy those older vintages, the library vintages anymore. Not back that far, but you don't need to, because what they're doing now is really great.
That's awesome. Okay, so there's a few recommendations.
Yeah. So there you go, guys. Happy holidays, and go and check these wines out, or have a great